I'd like to welcome everyone to it's a combination finance and construction committee meeting tonight for the public schools of Robertson County. We have on the finance committee here some of the same people in each area. Finance, Mr. Terry is here, Mr. Vontae, and Ms. Brenda Furby. And I'm the chair of that committee. Construction, Mr. Vontae is here for that, and Ms. Furby. Mr. Lawson is not here, but he is joining us from home. And so, Mr. Lawson, if you need to at any time, just let us know. Everybody should have an agenda, and we'll get started in just a moment. Before we do, if you don't mind, let's bow and have a word of prayer. Gracious Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your blessings each and every day, and we thank you for all those who are assembled here tonight. We ask your blessings upon this meeting, that the things that we say and do are for the betterment of our school system, especially the boys and girls and all the staff that works to make this system better each day. These things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, like I said, you have a package, and it starts off with capital project updates. And if you have questions, let me know. A couple of times I'll put some information in, but Ms. Erica, we'll let you go ahead and get started.
Good evening, Chairman Mr. Lowry and Chairman Mr. Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, and other board members. As you'll see outlined from the agenda, the very next page is a spreadsheet that's going to take us through most of the capital outlay project updates, and we're going to follow in order. We just wanted to bring to you the status of several projects that were already approved in the previous school year, and to let you know whether those have been completed, in process, and so forth. And then we'll have a couple of new roofing projects that we'll discuss, and we'll move through the agenda. So let's start with the towns and modular units. Of course, those have been completed, and that price is the first thing there on that spreadsheet, $276,240. And the bathroom upgrades here at the central office, of course, we all know this was an elementary school, so we had to do some conversions in the bathrooms to convert it from for pre-K children and smaller children to adult sizes, and add some doors where there weren't doors and so forth. All of that has been done. And then there was a bathroom conversion at Deep Branch. Those bathrooms were converted into classrooms. That work was done in-house, so I really wasn't able to pull in a price point. But we just wanted to let you know and remind that all those jobs have been completed. And yes, sir.
I was going to ask Mr. Ernie, so we're occupying those units, furniture is in at Townsend?
I think they were still waiting at one time on the last furniture they had ordered, but all the furniture that was available that they had there is in. Yes, sir.
It's just one classroom that don't quite have the chairs in it, but everything else is in it as of yesterday. And the staff is making arrangements to move into the building.
Also, Craig, if the board members are here, if anybody needs a pad or a pencil, they are over here if you need a pad or a pencil. We're going to make notes or whatever.
That's right.
Ms. Erica, let me add that at Deep Branch, what happened there's made 2 workrooms for teachers and staff. And actually I was there today, and we had teachers in those workrooms, or nurse or someone was in them being used. And this very good thing, because we sit there for about 3 years with some bathrooms that we had new ones in, and these rooms were just sitting there, not being used at all. So now we're able to put some staff in there to have them an office or a space where they can do the work. So that was very good, being able to do that.
That takes us through the first 3 bullets on the agenda. Next is the roof at Shining Stars. And as we had originally discussed, the Robertson County completely renovated the roof in that building, and our portion was $90,000, which we have been billed for and paid. And the transfer of ownership for that building has occurred. So that is part of Public Schools of Robertson County now. Then we will move forward with completed, not completed. Look at that spreadsheet on those roofing projects right in the Shining Stars. You'll see Deep Branch Gym, Lumberton High Auditorium Canopy, East Robertson classrooms and cafeteria have all been completed. St. Paul's High is almost completed. I think Mr. Bobby said there's a few minor things they need to do there. Knuckles and St. Paul's Elementary have also been completed and not done, but what was part of original approval list back in December of 2020 is Purnell, Fairmont High, Townsend, Rosenwald, and Orem. So of course, our recommendation is, since those projects were already approved, to move forward with continuing to process those roofing projects as they have already been, or getting close to the bid stage.
Okay.
And I have added up those totals for you to show where we are with those status, and that just applies to the roof projects there. Also, part of what was already approved was paving at Rex Renard. That came in much lower than we originally anticipated. Original cost was closer to $400,000. And you'll see there that when it came in for bid, it was $236,955. It has not been completed yet, but we have bid that project, as well as the Kessie Road Purnell project. That came in lower than the original was $149. That's a part that's on the, Mr. Ernie maybe explain it better than I can. A part on the outside of the school, there's a roadway that there's some homes there as well. And that was approved last year to move forward with paving. If you take everything up top, other projects, roof projects, paving, that little box there to the right shows all of those totals. Everything on that page has already been approved by the board, and we're showing what those status, just giving a status update there. And I can, yes, sir.
Very good. Let me, if I may add, folks, one reason we put this together is to show you what was done last year and the idea of staying on task of finishing these this year, because the money's there and to get those done. So we're not, say, dropping the ball on doing something that we put in place. And let me just add the IEA, just a reminder, when we sold property to the university a couple of years ago that's behind IEA, I think we got our compensation for that property was $75,000. And as far as I know, it's still there. And the look is, when the college has got to pave some of their property, once they get to doing that, that we can maybe look there at doing some paving with IEA with that $75,000 and see if we can get a better price to put two jobs together. But that's not say anything about approval now. That's just putting that out so we'll note it. It would be coming down the line. They finished the construction at the university, but the parking lot right now is a gravel parking lot. In my understanding, they're looking at doing some paving in the spring.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammers, Mr. Ray did a walkthrough yesterday at Townsend. I was there when Mr. Ray came for y'all, and he did the walkthrough, and I was there.
Good, good.
Thank you.
Craig,
Sir.
Mr. Ernie, Ms. Erica just said these paving projects came under budget or what we had thought. Rex Renner, who got that contract?
Diamond Construction,
Diamond?
Diamond Constructors.
Where are they from?
I really don't know where they're from, but they're not too far away from what I understand. They're not too far what we would consider.
Kessie Road is that dirt road.
Yes, sir.
Road, are we paving that whole road, or are we just paving it where it goes into the back of the parking lot at Purnell Sweat?
We're taking from where the point that you discussed that we needed to pave, we're taking that and we're redoing it from that point all the way to the highway,
In the back of the fence.
which is the wise way of spending your money. Because if you'd only done just that portion, then you would have been back spending more money later. And the engineer recommended if we could go that way, if we could go in that direction, that way he can take care of the drainage and everything on the road all at one time, and you spend your money once.
Mr. Smith, Diamond is out of Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Ms.
I
Erica?
just want to point out, as you already have done, Mr. Craig, I do have on the spreadsheet, Rex and Purnell were approved. IEA has not yet, as Mr. Lowry indicated. That was for information to have that discussion later on once the collaboration with the university.
The Purnell project is not Diamond, that is Barnhill.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're out of Lumberton, right?
I thought you were talking about Renard.
He was, but
I'm sorry, boss.
Purnell project, Barnhill.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And part of the new roof projects we wanted to bring up for discussion tonight and a possible recommendation to the full board is the gym at Prospect, the band room and classroom at South Robinson, And once the other project was done at St. Paul's, there's new areas at St. Paul's that have been recommended, the office, media, A&B wing, and the gym high roof.
Those were actually needing to be done all along. We prioritized the worst portions of the roof, so it's just a logical step that you got this done, you need to continue and finish and get it all under one time frame.
Mr. Ernie, so the gym at Prospect has that foam,
It's the foam, yes, sir. Just like what you and Mr. Bobby picked up at Red Springs Middle on that canopy. It's just like that, one of the old timey foams. And once it's, the last time I was up there, they had 55-gallon trash cans all around that place, so. That's why we wanted to try to move it on in.
So, go ahead, Mr. Vontae.
We spend a lot of money on roofs and stuff. I just want to ask about what are ours, oh God, I lost train of thought. What is our warranty and stuff on these roofs and stuff? We spend a lot of money on, what is our warranty? What is it? They're gonna stand behind it. I don't want to come back and do another roof, the same roof that's been leaking, come back and we fix it and it's leaking again next year. What is our warranty and what does it look like?
It's about a 15-year warranty on the standard roof, but we can get you specifics on every roof that's recently been done, and we'll get that so that the board can see, you can see. And as a matter of fact, that you brought that up, a lot of the roofs that were done back years ago when the board started appropriating a lot of money, those roofs that were done then, those warranties are kind of starting to show up at the end of their lifestyle. So this is why you're seeing that. So in essence, on a yearly basis, if so much money could be appropriated to maintain the roofs and get the other roofs caught up, then do the preventive maintenance piece as well, then you'd have a little better control of your roof.
Ms. Erica and probably Mr. Hammonds. Now, one thing, what we are doing with these roofs, we're not patching, we are replacing.
These are replacements.
The replacements last year and now, so we are replacing instead of doing a little stopgap measures. And had another, I'm like Mr. Vontae, I lost the train of thought. It must be contagious. But anyway, that was the main thing I wanted to check there. Now, the new roof projects here, this is it. If we, well, let me go back to this one first. At where we are now, Mr. Ernie, if we approve these new roof projects with what was done last year and where we're at, as far as we know, we would be in good shape with the roofs as they currently are.
The roofs that are your worst scenario roofs.
We're pretty good shape.
You still have a lot of roof area that's got to be looked at and maintained.
Eventually.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just like your pavement. Look at your pavement at the schools. I can take you and show you where we got gigantic cracks. And what that is a result of, not having money to put into maintaining them. And then if we maintain them over the years, they won't quite get in such a shape that they're in. So that's the goal with the roofs, if we can ever get that set up. So we're playing catch up now, or attempting to play catch up. And along with that, we're looking at some PM work as well that we want to get initialized and out there.
Okay, Mr. Terry?
Okay. So when you say maintain, do you mean maintaining it by us, or do we need to have some sort of agreements with these companies that's installing them to maintain them?
Yeah, you can set it up that way as a maintenance agreement. And that's the purpose. Well, usually whoever carries your roof warranty, those are the individuals we deal with on those roofs. And that's why, because they carry the warranty. So for example, let's say a contractor comes in and penetrates a roof. We just can't go up there and cut a hole. We have to contact that roofer to come up there and make us a pitch pocket or something to that degree. You know, whoever, on it. Somebody who works with that style roof, that roofing warranty personnel identifies and knows them and said, yeah, they're certified to work on this kind of roof, type of roof.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Brenda?
Mr. Hammond,
Ma'am?
at Rosenwald, the auditorium, does that include the leaks that they had there and the water that was running in at one time, or this just the flooring?
Say what now, one more time?
You know how the water had went into the gym at Rosenwald Auditorium?
Yes, ma'am. You're talking about from the roof?
Yes.
Okay.
Has that been taken care of?
That's one of the ones that we got to go ahead and get taken care of now.
And-
That's close on the list of being done.
And the costs for, that's not being completed, I wanted to ask the question at one time, for the flooring, is that gonna include that with it?
The flooring,
Mr. Bobby, you know what I'm,
no, the floor, this is just the roof only.
okay.
And as Mr. Bobby and I were discussing, these numbers, when you see them as projected numbers, they can go up or down depending upon, the time we're living in with the materials and stuff, so forth. So. But that biggest problem at Rosenwald, Miss Brenda, is a big gigantic vent they've got up there, the old timey metal vents that they put in years ago for the school ventilation. And that's what's got to be taken off. And when we do that, that's where it's got to be re-roofed, to make it all one solid.
All right, thank you.
And Ms. Erica, the new roofs down, projects there, we have money available to take care of those.
Yes, sir.
We do, okay. Any more discussion?
Mr. Craig, we talk about paving and stuff, and I know Superintendent mentioned Barnhill, and I had this conversation years ago. I know there's certain temperatures in Mr. Ernie when you can do some paving, but I would like for us to, maybe Barnhill's local, or somebody like that, maybe September, October, before it gets too cold, if we could get somebody on like a retainer type thing and say, well, we need to take care of, like Mr. Ernie said, there's some places throughout the county, go around, they got some big cracks, and maybe we could do like we did air conditioners and stuff. We could knock out 2 or 3, but put enough money in the budget, knock out 2 or 3 situations annually when their business is off a little bit. And it would supply them a resource and help us take care of some of our needs. I mean, that's just conversation.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve these new roof projects?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Ms. Brenda, do you have a second?
Second.
Have a second, Mr. Devontae, is that you? Mr. Henry? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and these, anything we approve tonight will be brought to the board full approval at our next meeting.
And if I may ask for clarification, what we just asked the board to approve the 371,000
That's correct.
for the project, that 2.7 at the bottom represent old and new in that. Okay, so just want to make sure.
Okay?
Mr. Craig,
Yes, Mr. Lawson.
I'd like to ask Mr. Ernie to go ahead and start looking at the next ones in line. I know there's some issues at Long Branch at the media center.
Yes, sir, that's on our list.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
And I may be overstepping by saying this, Mr. Lawson, but I think we're just trying to balance completing the projects we've already approved before we bring new ones and trying to balance that to make sure, we can get the groups in place and monitor that as we move forward.
yeah, you're right. That's good.
Okay, Ms. Erica, continue on.
Okay, and then, Mr. Jerome provided the next sheet, we go to the next sheet beyond the spreadsheet. We talked about the tracks before, and we were gonna just bring the tracks back up again. As we said, we've done Lumberton High School and St. Paul's High School. And as Mr. Jerome points out here, we do have an issue still at St. Paul's, but the only resolution is to redo it at this point. We haven't gotten any feedback from the company at all. So next on the list is Fairmont High School. So, we can have a discussion there about, we move forward with Fairmont. I think that would be our recommendation at this point, unless there's another direction that the board wanted to go. And when we say, it says needs resurfacing on here, but really what we're saying is we want it evaluated. If it means total replacement, then it means total replacement. We're not just saying just to resurface. We would have it evaluated to see which way it needed to go, if it was a total replacement or not, like it was at Lumberton.
Mr. Chairman.
Devontae?
No, I just want to make sure, and before we do that, we'll bring this back to the full board or to, the what's it called before we say yea or nay?
That's correct. Everything here. is-
Everything.
Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure, because it said just,
That's all,
Surface.
that's what we're doing tonight. It will be brought back at the October full board meeting.
When we do a motion tonight, it'll be worded if it's reassessed and then do it, and then all that's presented at the full board meeting.
Chairman, I think,
Gibson, no, did he have a comment, Ms. Brennan? No, Gibson. Or you have a comment, or?
I was just gonna say, I think, Ms. Erica, that we need to leave it in the order that you all got it, that's all.
I'm gonna ask and say on, to replace, so what kind of warranty can and will we get, because we don't
that's,
have,
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. The warranty on the last tracks with Lumberton and St. Paul's was a 3-year warranty.
right. But in terms of installation of whatever we do, we're gonna make sure that we write in that contract that if you recommend we just resurface and not resurface, then you're gonna be held liable for, and you have to fix whatever. We don't wanna get caught again.
What happened with the St. Paul's track? And I've got it now. I weren't here when all this was done, but I have a copy of the contract. In their contract, it says they're not responsible for underlying surface, which is the problem at St. Paul's right now. So my understanding is the underlying surface was not tested before they resurfaced. So that's why we've got the problem we've got now.
And I would say that would be where, going forward, we put it in the wording that all that's tested and we get information back. If it needs to be everything taken out and start over, I feel like we need to do that to start with instead of going there and resurfacing just what's there. So we're gonna leave that, put that in the contract with the company where that can be taken care of to start with. Mr. Vontae?
Just go for you, Mr. Jerome. What's usually the lifespan of a track or something? What's usually the lifespan of high school tracks and stuff? I mean,
10 to 12 years.
all right, and the second question, follow up, your mind. Is there any, you think there's any way that we can negotiate if we get some tracks, maybe a 5 or 6 year warranty instead of a 3-year warranty?
We probably can, because I think the new track that's going in at Red Springs, according to Answer Construction, Mike, you can help me out on this. I think it's gonna be a 5-year warranty.
Yeah, because this,
That's good.
Springs.
I think that's right.
But now that may have to do, and I don't know, I may be overstepping it because it's brand new.
Yeah.
And they know how it is existing. It's from nothing to them building it up. But I'm sure they may be able, if we ask, all they can say is no, or maybe negotiate. But I'm sure, especially like Mr. Vontae said,
The same company that done St. Paul's track is the same company that done Lumberton's track. Lumberton's had no issues whatsoever. Their underlying surface was okay.
So that's the same, that was not a new underlying surface at Lumberton.
They didn't put a new underlying surface up over there.
I think they did go deeper at Lumberton to replace something, maybe not the very bottom, but they did go more layers in at Lumberton than they did at St. Paul's.
They may have added some extra layers, but they didn't go in and scrape the underlying surface up.
Mr. Ernie, do you have a question?
What I've observed over the years, going back to Mr. Vontae's original idea in motion, we need to get professional people that does tracks, nothing but tracks. They live and breathe tracks. And the reason St. Paul's can get a better warranty, that's because they're controlling the process of construction all the way up.
Red Springs.
Red Springs, you mean?
I meant Red Springs, I'm sorry. But the other point I wanted to make is, the reason they wouldn't probably give you a warranty at St. Paul's, they're coming in on top of something that they don't know without, like you said, doing the testing. So that's the difference. My opinion, wherever you have to go to find it, that needs to be a track professional, someone who does tracks. That's how I would recommend it. And then that way you're going to get the best bang for your buck.
And, Mr. Chairman, because St. Paul's had that soil sediment,
Yes, ma'am.
so that contributed to a lot of things, so we really need to monitor that carefully.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Erica, let me make this comment. This is looking through all of what's on this sheet here and dealing with the tracks too. And I'm just making this not as a motion, but just information if you would look at it. All high schools have something here that they're getting done, except for Fairmont. And with that in mind, since Lumberton and St. Paul's, I know we're gonna have to go back and do something at St. Paul's. Now, it would be my suggestion that if we're gonna do a look at a track, that we look at the one for Fairmont. because of that situation, because it is the top one on the bottom. That if we going to do some track, that you would take that into consideration. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Fairmont High.
For Fairmont High School, as far as doing a track, because we're looking at doing all 5 of them at some point.
And as,
Lumberton's fine, so I'm sorry. That's it. Go ahead.
and as we move forward with Mr. Bobby and the ESSER, you'll see that that expands out to the to the elementary schools with playgrounds. And as you've indicated, that there will be projects ongoing at all of our high schools, except for Fairmont. So that was a recommendation to move forward with the Fairmont track.
So if that's a recommendation, if there's no further discussion, could we have a motion that we do look at going through with the Fairmont redoing their track?
I'd make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Vontae, a second by Mr. Brewer. And again, we're going to do this in detail to see what is needed, actually, whether it's do the whole track, replace everything, and, you know, get an assessment from the company.
Dollar amount back once we have that information.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Erica?
Okay, next on the list is, recommendations from Locklear and Jacobs for tennis court replacement, and we're just bringing this as information. Again, this was done in December, we're coming up on a year ago, it may be something that we need to get some updated information on to see, but the schools here as far as tennis court replacement are evaluated by Locklear and Jacobs, and you'll see they are in worst to best condition, with Red Springs High being worse, and down to St. Paul's High being in the best condition. I'm just bringing that for information to have, maybe start that conversation soon about looking at tennis courts, also putting them on some kind of a schedule, one a year as well.
Okay.
The notes that you see where it says minor cracks, anytime you see that, that's exactly why now they need to be looked at and resurfaced. Because that will continue to grow and then you've got major failure. So I just wanted to point that out.
Folks, I would say if you get a chance, go by and look at all tennis courts. But I will say, if you're in Red Springs or Purnell Sweat, please look at those. Red Springs played on theirs last year. In my opinion, they shouldn't have. Sweat did not play on theirs. They couldn't. When they say cracks, these are cracks. I mean, they're, I want to say little gullies for being on a tennis court.
Red Springs is playing on theirs this year.
Red Springs playing on it now. And Sweat this year was able, they're actually playing matches at home this year at South Robinson. Last year, they went to the visiting site and just played 2 matches there on one day, which turned a 2 or 3 hour day into a 4 or 5 or 6 hour day. So if you can go by and visualize and see what we're talking about on these tennis courts, it might give you a little different perspective on those. Mr. Henry, did you have your hand up?
Yes. In respect to Red Springs High and the new athletic complex, would that be a new tennis court involved with that? Or you want to use the existing one?
Yeah, the existing tennis court, there hadn't been nothing put out about a new,
Didn't draw any plans on
no plans on that.
the original plan to put it over there. If we'd have been thinking good, it could have been a good time to put it all over
Right.
that same complex that there's enough room. But at this point, all we're talking about now is redoing. And at Red Springs, you just got 3. In Purnell Sweat, you got 4. In St. Paul's, you got 4. They actually need, theoretically, I think everybody needs.
6.
They probably need 6.
Yeah.
They probably need at least 4 at
Regulation.
Red Springs, and St. Paul's already got 4. I don't know how many does Fairmont got?
I think they got 4, I think.
Says 4.
I think they got 4.
Yeah. But it's not in the original plan, in that. You could squeeze it in that big.
Yeah,
All schools need, to be honest with you, any school needs 6. If you can have them 6 courts to play all your singles at one time where you're not having people having to wait.
Yeah.
And so in some cases, even if we're, you know, upgrading what we got, it's building new one now. Red Springs, where they're at now, to me, it looks landlocked that they couldn't even build any more than the 3 that's there. Because it's kind of landlocked in that particular spot where those 3 are. Mr. Vontae?
Yeah, okay, I want to go back to, like you said, with Red Springs one time. I think we need to go back and just look at the plans and see, can you add one? Because I don't want to come back 5 years down the road and come back and say, we should have built this, and we should have built this over here with this. And we got everything going on, the tennis court's not over there. I mean, I want to spend the money and spend it one time.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Mr. Leach's comment also in relation, when you look at numbers and student population, that's the fastest growing end of the county. So that's another reason to really take another look at it.
We've had that conversation as late as today, that very point, and at this point, my recommendation is we need to finish that project, as is now, and then come back probably sometime in January with all the tennis courts. But we had that conversation about adding that, sir.
It's hard to come back in once you get started. If you look at if you're going to look at the project, and I understand what you're saying, Dante, but I don't even know if you could squeeze it in there. You could probably take up part of the parking area that it got allocated, and you might could squeeze it in somewhere, but at this point, we're so.
Well, all the
So-
drainage, all that work's
Yeah.
been done.
Yeah.
So at this point, and that's what,
We delved in so deep, I understand, and I'd like to see 4 courts, but I don't know that you. I think it's still-
well, at this point, we're too far down to get that. I do want to ask, though, Jerome, to hold tournaments, does it take 6 courts for that? To do, so that's the value of the 6 court piece that we could have regional tournaments and all of that piece. And
At this point, only Lumberton would be our only school.
Yeah.
Lumberton's the only one with 6 courts, yeah.
Mr. Ernie?
Possibility, just an idea. You're going to do a new track at St. Paul's. That's in the future plans, right?
St. Paul's and Red Springs.
Red Springs, I'm sorry. Red Springs, that is the plans, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Once that's done, the existing track that's at Red Springs, couldn't you just take that out and expand your tennis courts there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Idea.
That's been,
if you take the old track out, yeah, and go backwards where the old track is, you could expand it that way, mister.
Yeah. And see, that way you can still be moving forward the concept and
Right.
get it achieved.
Mr. Ernie, that was actually looked at up there, that with the new track, they would definitely be room. And that's really the only place that's seen up there where you could add tennis courts, is that for that old track. But again, going back, Mr. Vontae, and what was said here, with the complex that's going up at Red Springs, if we get to December, January, we would have a good idea of where we would be with total cost. So I'm still saying we could come back and look at, go ahead and doing possibly the tennis courts, if it's at the new side or if it's over there at the existing side. Because now, I'm gonna tell you, those tennis courts at Red Springs are bad, folks. And when I say gaps, I don't think I'm exaggerating too many places that telling you that the pavement's this far apart on a tennis court. When that tennis ball hits, you don't know where it's going. And they're playing on it. And that's sad for our kids to have to be playing in situations like that. So I definitely think you come back and take a look, see, we get into this project, and it's possible at the new site, or, as Mr. Ernie says, that old track there is not going to be of any use. And there would be plenty of room inside there if we had to put tennis courts there and get the other one refurnished, whatever we needed to do. But definitely could take a look at it. And again, this year was the night year for information, the tennis court part.
may I add one other thing?
Yes, sir.
We've had some just brief conversations about the tennis courts and if we could define them as outdoor classrooms, because if we teach tennis in those, so that raises some funding possibilities. While we're saying, give us a little time to take a look at that, because it may meet that definition of outside classrooms, where that we teach that.
Okay. Sorry.
Next few pages, all of them is to the very last sheet, were brought to us by the EC department and Ms. Jennifer Hannah, Ms. Tico with Shining Stars, and like a 2 to 3 year proposed plan. Now that Public Schools of Robinson County owns the entire building. So they have a lot of great ideas there about expanding the existing 3-year-old, possibly pre-K program, including some severely handicapped children that we need more space for, larger classroom size, to offer some day treatment programs, start opening up some things for parents. And tonight, we bring this forward. There's no dollar amounts in here. We're still kind of in the discussion phase of how to move forward, what's going to work best there. But we did want to make a recommendation to move forward with this so we can start construction again. We would bring it all back once we got numbers, but we want to start that process, working with that department to see which area is going to fit and looking at the options we have for that building now that it is, all owned by public school.
Dr. Williamson?
And so in our discussions, it was estimated that we could serve an additional 200 students
That's correct.
by expanding and adding these classrooms, which would mean additional funding.
That's correct.
And it definitely fits under that ESSER program, sure, because they're our classmates, so you could, that federal money you're talking about with.
Well, I'm not sure if we could use that money for that part of it.
We're not talking about federal funds with, this construction, we're talking about capital projects. It's not really clear about the pre-K portion there, and then I don't know if we would have enough funding because most of the ESSER funding has already been committed for that particular type project, but we do have the funding. We've, talked about looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million, that we would have to be able to put towards this project.
And those different program areas under pre-K, the additional 200 students would bring in that additional money.
Those funding would help support additional teachers and additional resources there. Once you get the additional funds in, that expands the per child amounts that you get in several areas, like the EC budget itself, the developmental day funding that the Shining Stars also receives, and the money that they get from the park.
But theoretically, if you increase the enrollment, it would theoretically pay for itself, basically.
Eventually.
Correct.
And that's 200 kids from throughout the county,
That's correct.
anywhere in the county.
That's good.
Mr. Ernie?
And let's not lose sight, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Erica, any capital outlay money that you spend, we go through DPI, we get that reimbursed back, correct?
It probably, because it's classrooms, we could look at using lottery funds for this as well. You have to get the plans and everything.
Right.
approved. But we want to start that conversation to see what all of our options are, and that's why we're asking for that tonight, so we can move forward with asking those questions and getting those plans together, so, we can move forward with the classroom upgrade.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Brenda and a second by Mr. Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Can I ask for clarification, because I want to be
Yeah,
clear
I was
on
gonna ask the question.
what
Go
we
ahead.
just said.
Go ahead.
Our intent is to move forward with this project.
Right.
To do the engineering work to determine that, but it is a capital project that we want to complete, next year. That's,
And as we get updates, once we move forward with those initial phases of engineering costs and so forth, we'll bring back what the projected costs look like for that.
Right, with some dollar amounts. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
thank you.
The very last sheet that I have is just an update. Soccer, middle school soccer, has already been approved by the Board of Education. Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of held that up and we weren't able to move forward with bringing that to fruition. But we just wanted, Mr. Jerome provided this sheet to give a just refresh on what those costs would be to get the middle school soccer program started at our middle schools with 12 girl teams, 12 boy teams, and 12 goals. And he told me today that he may be able to negotiate a even lower amount for the goals, but this is what we anticipate spending to get that program in the spring, right, Mr. Jerome? Spring 2022. This is just information that's already been approved by the board several years ago. And we can answer any questions about that.
Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, thank you. Okay, ESSER funding, air purification.
Good evening. Chairman Lowry, and I think Chairman Lawson's online. So I'm just going to teach you tonight and give you more information when we get to our board retreat. Workshop, I'm sorry.
Workshop.
But
Mr. Bobby, and the workshop will be held in this building.
yes,
Yes.
so just wanted to give you an update on some projects that we're going to probably push the go button on Monday. As you know, with our ESSER funding, and I believe that ESSER plan has already been approved. And part of the ESSER money has to be spent, and Ms. Freeman's gonna like this, in prevention of, reduction of, and response to COVID. So a lot of the capital projects that we're gonna start working on immediately, it's gonna be is our air purification. And that is, cleaning the air in our classrooms. We have money set aside, and Mr. Ernie and I were just talking about this. We're lucky to have monies that we can spend on upgrading and getting better HVAC systems in our buildings. And again, I'm gonna show you more, have pictures on this on Saturday, but we're also looking at improving the outdoor areas for our students, and in starting in phase one is gonna be, we're gonna try to install at least 11 playgrounds at half of our elementary schools. And then we're gonna get that phase out of the way and then start with the other 11. And as already been mentioned, we're gonna expand the weight rooms or provide new weight facilities at Purnell and St. Paul's. And again, that is COVID because we're widening the spaces that children can be in. And lastly, and one of the most important things, and this has been kicked around for several years, is doing some work at the auditorium at Lumberton High. And as we all know, that is a classroom space. And once we go in and we're able to upgrade that classroom space, it will be a place where children can go in and again, have that additional space spread out, whether not on top of one another for theater, dance, chorus, and those other type things in the building. But we just wanted to let you know as part of construction that these are some of the projects, again, that probably Monday, we're gonna push the green light on these and start the ball rolling.
Very good.
Vontae?
Yes, for the weight rooms at Purnell and St. Paul's, what size buildings or what size buildings or buildings can we fit in there, or what did we come up with?
The last information I got from talking with Robbie at those two places, we're waiting on surveying.
Okay.
Yeah, and the purpose of the,
Size is still supposed to be,
Still supposed to be 50 by 100. That's what they were trying to look at, 50 by 100 buildings. And like you said, surveying was an issue.
and that was the purpose of the survey, Mr. Chairman. I talked with Mr. Jonathan, not just recently, and that's what he said. Once they get the survey, he's working with the principals to see if they can put them in the spaces where they're wanting them at. So that's the critical part right now, the survey and getting all that done.
I said it was hard to get a surveyor. I told him,
Yes, sir.
tried to talk to that young man in Red Springs, but I hadn't had an opportunity to stop by there. But when I talked to Jonathan, he said that all these surveyors was just backed up in there.
He had a person, but then that person got COVID, so a lot of that, the
Yeah.
19 is affecting their ability to get some of those.
But he started at Purnell.
Yeah, he's done,
He's actually
the
done
survey has done work at Purnell.
Vontae, do you have another?
One more question. Did anybody, I know we said 50 by 100, did anybody look at the 75 by 100 and see the cost difference and everything? Because I don't want, that's another, again, I don't want to come back again and say, we wish we would have added more space or more stuff.
Mr. Montagne, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. The funding available there's $3 million for both, so $1.5 million for each location. I think the funding is there to look at multiple options for the size of the weight room, but it's got to fit, as Mr. Ernie said, in the existing space. So we're waiting to get there, and then we'll start opening that up and expanding that. And more information about that will be included in tomorrow in the weekend information.
That survey, I will say again, that from my conversation, that had been the big holdup because I was getting impatient. Why hadn't we heard nothing? And got to talking and said they'd been trying, I don't know if it's 6 weeks trying to get a surveyor out to those places. And once we can get that size, we can look at the sizes because as far as we've kicked around 50 by 100 the whole time, but there's not been no design of any type building. We figure out how much and where, and we can start looking at those things a little more.
And then another thing, I want to just throw this out here. Sometimes some of the principals, I understand principals come and go. I think I make a decision where a building or something need to go. It's probably need to come from like the board or Mr. Jerome or something. I don't think it need to come from the principal. I'm just throw that out there.
And to add,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, and to add to that conversation, we were notified about 2 or 3 weeks ago in using ESSER funds that when we place these buildings on a campus, it has to go through DPI's approval.
Right.
Okay.
Be part of the process as well.
And if I may, this is classrooms, totally equipped, ready to use, correct? So I want to make sure, so the 3 million has got to pay for all of that. Totally outfitted classrooms ready to go.
Wherever they place them at, they gotta meet all zoning requirements for the.
Exactly.
Yes, all of that will.
Survey will take that.
Yeah, and we'll have to see
Right.
monitoring progress reports.
Right.
That's it.
Now, well,
Why you need the surveyor.
You say functional, like St. Paul's and Purnell Sweat, does that means they're gonna be new weights and everything's gonna be brand new?
Yes, sir.
and if I may add, Mr. Bonte, with what you're saying too, the surveyor's got to say they can go to site 1 or site 2.
Right.
But then also too, and they got to be put in relation to what's there. You know, if you still got dressing rooms and other facilities there, and to me, you don't want these rooms, they're gonna be able to be used by everybody. And we've clearly stated that. I mean, I know we call them weight rooms, we think of the football team going out there every day, and they probably will. But these rooms it's a multi-purpose. These rooms can be used by all athletic teams. So if
And girls.
boys and girls, that's the reason I'm saying all. Yeah, they're gonna be available for everybody. And they got to be fixed where they are in relationship to what's there, because you don't want one building here at one end of the campus and one all the way at the other end. So there are a lot of things that will come into play is where these buildings actually go. And Miss Erica, I will not overemphasize, girls and boys. Girls and boys, Title IX, trust me,
That's right.
trust me.
That's correct.
Mr. Bobby, let me ask, I know we got and saying we're ready to push the button on all of these here, what you mentioned. So, you know, the air purification is one of the big things with COVID. So all of this stuff, we'll be able to get started. And I know we can't go and do all schools at one time, one day. But when we start pushing it out, we'll be getting stuff coming in and starting the project, like I said, if it's next week or as soon as possible on all this year.
Yeah, so I actually spoke with one of the vendors for the air purifications today, and he is going to send me a weekly count of what he can get in inventory. And so we're gonna push out, you know, if it's 150 units, then we're gonna have a dissemination plan for those 150 units. And if next week it's another 150, we're gonna have a dissemination plan for those, and we're gonna lay that out up front.
Okay. Ms. Erica?
I also wanted to mention specifically, and I try to say it as many places so it's documented, air purifiers have been approved through a waiver process with the Department of Public Instruction. We sent detailed information on the air purifiers, along with the company, along with the quote, and other information, and we got that. DPI sent an approval and award letter for us to move forward with that project.
And also, if we can add to that, again, you approved the ESSA plan, so all these projects, so we won't need to bring them by projects to you. The other part is the air purification is this device will kill rather than.
Trash.
Capture.
Right, and that's just what separates.
Mr. Henry?
Are those portable units that go into individual rooms, or is that one consolidated system?
Portable units that are plug in.
In every classroom.
Every space. we
Every
have,
space,
yeah.
yes, yes.
We've accounted for classrooms, media, cafeteria, gymnasiums, and office space. Every space within our school buildings, even here, IEA, every building that we own, we've calculated having those purifiers in those spaces.
That number is, if I remember, was 21,
About it was 2135, so 2,135 devices that we're gonna end up.
And they were rated by space size, as far as how many we needed?
yes,
Okay.
Yes.
and all that.
Their larger spaces will need more than one. For a regular classroom, one will work.
Company themselves actually will come in and do their own calculations for us for no charge. And also they have a device that can come in and check how they're working after they're plugged in. No charge, so.
Mr. Mike?
Mr. Ernie, at the Lumberton Senior High, the auditorium, I know we've been talking about this for a few years, like we talk about everything. And everything's a process. Nothing happens overnight. That's one thing I have learned about serving on the board. But we did a assessment at Lumberton High School years back, and like $1 million or something. That was to change the curtains and the lighting and the electrical. Is that still the major plan? Is like to revamp the whole?
Well, with the approach we're coming now, that would be a natural change. But the other thing that's got to go along with it is the air handling system now, which is that was built back in the sixties, just like that one at Lumberton, Junior. So when they redone Lumberton Junior, we changed the, mechanical equipment out as well. And that would also require, looking at the insulations on the ductwork, may even have to change out your ductwork.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things with the COVID thing, especially by it becoming a classroom now, that really needs to be looked at. In other words, the things that you don't see, which are above the ceiling in the mechanical rooms, they'll need to be looked at. And I think that's one of the first schools we're looking at, high schools with ESSER money, because there's a lot there to be done.
So the auditorium has served as a classroom. The HVAC projects will address what Mr. Ernie is talking about. So there's two different portions. In ESSER 2, there's HVAC projects. And then in ESSER 3, all of the high schools are designated for specific HVAC, and that will help cover the cost for the auditorium classroom.
So the answer to your question is yes.
Yes. Get it off.
So what we did as a team is prioritize it. I know we've all heard this before, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we knew we couldn't tackle everything in ESSER at one time. So what we prioritize is our first priority, of course, is air purification, then HVAC, and then playgrounds. Once we push the go button on that and get that process rolling, then we're gonna start another round of projects through our ESSER money.
And y'all tell me to sit down if I'm talking too much. Again, we'll go over in more detail tomorrow. We naturally did that with the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding as far as prioritizing because of the timelines of spending as well. So most of these projects, with the exception of the weight rooms, are in ESSER 2. So that timeline comes first. Then ESSER 3 has an additional year. So we looked at all of that and starting that to also match the timelines of the grants.
Miss Erica, could you share the time limitations on this with us for both pots of money?
Yes, so ESSER 2 currently has to be spent and/or encumbered by September the 30th of 2023. ESSER 3 has to be spent or encumbered by September the 30th of 2024. More than likely, we'll get extensions on those, but we are operating with the mindset that that will happen. And I say that because so this year we had funding that was going to expire today, actually. Yesterday, we received notification that we got a year. So you can't wait till the day before to find out that you've got another year. So all of our processes are going to mirror those dates and move forward with that as best we can.
Okay.
And
Dr. Williamson?
Ms. Craig just asked about our touchless classrooms. We'll talk about that Saturday.
Yes, that's in 3.
Okay.
We'll expand on ESSER a lot over on Saturday.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Craig, and I know you and I have talked about this, and if I'm out of order, just tell me, or if we're gonna talk about it tomorrow or Saturday. I know we got that $15 million. Well, we got two different, we got the one that was allocated for the planetarium. And we got the one trying to get up with that man or some man, did y'all ever make?
I have too, sent another email, but I haven't had no contact to see if there's anything could be worked out. Which,
We got an email, I thought was,
Okay, so the part about the planetarium, I don't believe has passed yet. It is pending in one of the versions of the budget.
Oh, really?
That has not passed, specifically for the planetarium.
Oh, really?
I cannot remember if it's in the House or Senate version, but it's pending. The $15 million need-based grant that we received, that we have been awarded, we communicated with Mr. Nathan, and can you give me his last name, Dr.?
Man.
Wayne or something. And he indicated there's not a timeline for those funds. Of course, we know they'll withhold our lottery funds for a 5-year period, but we are not held to a 5-year period to spend the $15 million. We got that notification yesterday.
which is a change from what it's.
It's a change.
That's correct, and there are other changes for additional needs-based grants that are pending into legislation as well that would allow us to request additional grant monies, maybe even double. But that language, again, is pending and it hasn't passed. We're waiting on the state budget to get clarity.
Mm-hmm. So he didn't give no indication in that email if the 15 million could be changed as far as how we were looking at it. Still waiting on a response, I'm assuming, Could we,
He just indicated there's no
no
timeline.
timeline, okay?
To me, he's saying to me, we wouldn't have to change it because it doesn't matter if it takes us more than 5 years to get to the tech high school, if that's still what we want it for.
Okay.
That's the interpretation I received.
And Mike, I seen the two that the legislature, I can't remember House or Senate, which one had put that in there for a planetarium. But one of them had it and the other one didn't. And, well, it would be plenty to help with a planetarium if it was passed.
And while we're on the needs-based grant that's pending to, that money could double. And with a letter of request, if that passes in the budget, those dollars are there. So a lot of money pending.
That's in the Senate level.
That's good.
Any other comments? Okay, just to reiterate, we had 3 motions that were approved to deal with the new roofs, track at Fairmont, and to look at the classroom upgrades for Shining Stars. And all those will be presented for the full board's review when we meet Tuesday week. And if they pass at that time, then we would say we'd get started on those immediately as far as working on whatever needs to be done with those. Okay. Mr. Lawson, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any comment?
I'm good.
I hope you get the feeling better too.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Ernie, good to see you tonight.
Let me thank everybody for your prayers and your support during the time of the COVID situation. Especially a certain lady sitting in here who, her and her team was in the fast mode. And I ain't talking about running fast, I'm food fast. I'm a believer that prayer changes things, and so thank all of you and all of the.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vontae, second by Mr. Brewer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, we